It's the end of an era in the NBA. Did the Utah Jazz miss their window they should have pushed through? We discuss next on Locked On Jazz. Bum 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 pow.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
How are you? I am David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen every day. Here's what we're doing today. Two fun things today. One is we are going to, the NBA has a major seismic shift to where it is. We'll look at the impact of that. And also, did the Jazz miss a window that they should have grabbed while this was happening? Plus, three of the best GMs in the NBA drafting: Dennis Lindsay, Danny Ainge, and Sam Presti. We'll look back. What? Dennis, the much maligned Dennis Lindsay? Yes, we'll use our draft history of what we know you're supposed to get on a pick and look at the history of picks by Danny Ainge, Dennis Lindsay, and Sam Presti and see how they do and what their performance is. But the biggest story of the NBA, LeBron out, and now with Durant out and with LeBron out and with Steph out for the first time since 2005, George W. Bush was president. None of them will play in the second round. It's been 18 years. And LeBron still got it. Durant still got it. Steph still got it. They don't have playoff it, whatever that is. LeBron 30, 11, and 9. Kawhi Leonard, by the way, 33, might not be there either. The final four in the West, we don't know yet, but three of the four are Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Anthony Edwards, Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, and likely, maybe still likely, Luka Doncic. This is the new era of the NBA. Jokic is ridiculous. His series numbers were 20, 16, 10 at 67% true shooting percentage. But so for the Utah Jazz, who made the decision now about 24 months ago, 22, that the makeup of Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert and the window that they had left, I think that's a key note here, which really, as Cleveland's about to find out and could find out tonight, here we go, Magic, here we go, boom, boom, here we go, Magic, here we go, boom, boom. Okay, very fired up for the Orlando Magic tonight. Franz Wagner, Paulo Banchero, Jalen Suggs, Utah Jazz fans, those are your three favorite players tonight. You need the Magic to beat Cleveland because that suddenly begins to send a spiral toward Cleveland. It could send our draft picks into a absolutely fabulous position. Totally selfish. Regardless of the fact that I love George Niang. I'm a fan of Donovan Mitchell. J.B. Bickerstaff is a great guy. Kobe Altman's pretty interesting. Regardless of those things, here we go, Magic. Here we go. Okay, anyway. But from a Jazz standpoint, do we look at this now and say, oh my gosh, if I had read this landscape and understood exactly what's going to happen, and that the minuscule decline of LeBron, Durant, and Curry was going to mean this, that we should have been shoving through here, fighting, dealing with the Donovan going to New York or wherever else at the end of the year trade stuff, dealing with the Rudy Donovan, altering that lineup in some way, pushing through, maybe with a new head coach, Will Hardy changes the feel on that team. Did we miss the window? It's hard to say. Like I felt like it's an interesting, I think it's a great Reddit conversation. Like I feel like I should go on Reddit, love Reddit, and throw that out there for the conversation. I think it's a great conversation. Trying to figure out if I had a definitive takeaway here where if I was hosting a talk show, I could be grandiose and clickbaity and all that. But the beauty of hosting a podcast is I don't feel like I have to do that anymore. I feel like I can respect you guys and we can hold these kind of great conversations. And so I was trying to look at it. I guess the real question you have to ask yourself is at the end of the 21-22 season when Bojan shot from the left wing doesn't go after the Jazz have won 49 games that year and finished fifth in the Western Conference. Were we really that close? That's kind of where we'd won 49 games. We were the 7th best offense, the 10th best defense. We were the number 1 offense, 9th best defense. Like, we had a 3rd best net rating. But we also lose that series to Dallas without Luka playing a bunch of it. And clearly, Quinn's time, as Quinn said, they needed a new voice. And Donovan and Rudy had their tumultuous thing, and Rudy couldn't get out of the way. If you remember that year, we're rolling, and then Rudy has the press conference and this. So it wasn't great. And you look at the team, and frankly, in 3 of the last 4 years prior, they hadn't gotten out of the first round. So for me to sit here and suddenly make this statement, they're like, oh, we had the window, we should have kept pushing. I'm not that comfortable making that statement. But I do think it's a super interesting moment in time in the NBA right now, in which clearly we're seeing a transformation and a passing of the guard to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Anthony Edwards, Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic in the Western Conference. And really the stars of the game. Jason Tatum, maybe Jalen Brunson, and the stars of the game. It's the era that we've lived for really almost 20 years, right? And the transformation's been happening. The last 6 MVPs at the end of this year will have been Jokic, Embiid, and Giannis. So that's changing. Certainly some. But the idea that for the first time since 2005, none of these guys are in the second round, it is a different world. And the fact that, Kawhi Leonard at 33 years old, this is a pretty interesting Clippers series, by the way, because I was talking with some people yesterday that I actually think game 3, we'll see what happens tonight. If the Clippers win tonight and they come back and win the series, we'll see. But I actually think the loss in game 3, when Kawhi can't really play, could turn out to be a seminal moment for the Los Angeles Clippers franchise as we know it. Now, maybe Ballmer has enough money and the new building will be so great they'll just recover. But I remember vividly being in Denver when Mehmet Okur tears his Achilles tendon and getting on the bus with Bowler and Booner and everyone it's the 2010 season, playoffs of 2010, and saying, oh, that's it. That's the end of this as we know it. We end up going on to win that series. Adrian Dantley's coaching instead of George Karl, and then we get swept by the Lakers in the next series, and that was it. We made one more. Tyrone Corbin somehow got us to the playoffs in the shortened 66-game season the year after Jerry, but it was it. It was it. And it feels like that's where the Clippers actually were game 3. Then they came back to win game 4. Let's see. It felt like when Memo tore his Achilles, we were done too. And then we came back and still won that series remarkably. But we were done. We had lost a major piece. Kawhi, the fact that he's been healthy for 3 of the last 17 games feels like it's done. So here's this massive transformation. The door was open. Do you look back and say to yourself, oh my gosh, had we been able to see the future and known, we should have kept pushing. We had Donovan. Is Donovan Ant, Shai, Luka, Jokic? Is Rudy better than Donovan? I always thought so. I always thought Rudy was more impactful than Donovan on the Jazz. Can't play offense, but just always thought that. We all know that. Rudy's still playing. He's got Ant. Donovan's being asked to carry. Can't carry right now. Here we go, Magic. Not against Donovan, just because we need the picks. But it's pretty fascinating. I think the truth is that probably Donovan's not Ant, not Shai, not Jokic, not Doncic. And so we could have pushed. We'd be in the midst of a tumultuous hell of Donovan's free agency. Rudy, we certainly weren't going to go get 5 first-round draft picks at this stage of his career with the contract still coming. And I certainly weren't going to get the incredible haul that we talked about yesterday for Donovan, which may turn out to get even better as of tonight. So I think you'd look back at it and say, yeah, even with, if I had to, this was my kind of, even with this transformation taking place, the changing of the guard taking place, considering what was the haul that was gotten, and considering that for really 3 of the 4 times we hadn't got out of the first round, and I'm just not sure that Donovan is better than Ant, Shai, Jokic, Doncic, and I'm not sure that Ant and Rudy are better than that. And as good as we would be, we might have just been that one team short still. It's fun. Discuss it amongst yourselves. Enjoy it. We're just getting started. Danny Ainge, Dennis Lindsay, Sam Presti, draft history based on what we did last week where we looked at the NBA draft and have an expected value of every pick. Has Ainge in his history overachieved? What did Lindsay do? He missed on Desmond Bane and Jaden McDaniels taking Udoka Azubuike. But is he a good drafter? He took Dante Exum and Trey Burke. Is he still a good drafter? And Sam Presti, is he as good as everyone says? We're looking at those three as we continue next on Locked On Jazz. Today's edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you by Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. So make sure you jump over to Murdoch Hyundai. All right, first thing is the Murdochs. Just a great family who's been in Utah for now over 80 years and is deeply embedded into our community and what experience you're going to have and wanting to make sure that you have that experience. That's who the Murdochs are. Second, Hyundai. What a lineup of cars. The Sonata and the Elantras are the affordable sedans that bring you more bells, more whistles, more safety features than you can imagine. The electric cars, the Ioniq and the 5 and 6 have won every award, and then the SUV lineup from the Kona to the Tucson, which I'm driving right now and love, to the Santa Fe to the Palisade, and now the new Santa Cruz. It's amazing. So if you're looking for a car, add Hyundai to your list and do it at the Murdochs. Email me first at dlock09@gmail.com, and we'll make sure we get you the VIP treatment that you deserve. It's at Murdoch Hyundai at 4646 South State Street, also in Logan and in Linden. Feel free to email me first and head on over. Today's show is also brought to you by DoorDash. We all know DoorDash bails us out when we're on the road. I've talked about a bunch of guys we travel with are DoorDash Pass members, and instead of, like I often do, Uber to go out to dinner by myself with me and Kindle, and suddenly I've spent $50 on this and $40 on this, and no, we're going to do it the reason. Well, guess what else DoorDash can do for you? Same-day delivery or schedule a week ahead on flowers and gifts for Mother's Day. That's coming up. Make sure you don't miss out on this. You can have a Dash Pass membership, and you'll save zero delivery fee and reduced service fees on eligible orders with Dash Pass merchants that meet the minimum subtotal. Other fees apply. Terms do apply on that one. But so, get all your Mother's Day gifts all in one place and get 50% off your next order up to $15 when you spend $15 on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order now with the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's Locked On NBA. Order using DoorDash today. Get Mother's Day gift as unique as she is with DoorDash. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA. Get 50% off your next order up to $15 when you spend $15 on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order now on DoorDash. That's Locked On NBA. Order using DoorDash today. Terms do apply. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. I hope you've made the switch to Locked On Sports today. Our numbers are going wild on YouTube right now. It's a 24/7 stream of the most important Locked On podcasts of the day, giving you the local experts, not all the screaming of ESPN and Fox, and giving you the breakdown that you need. So go today to YouTube, search Locked On Sports today, and hit the 24/7 live feed. Or if you have an Amazon Fire TV, you can do it on Fire TV. We have more announcements coming, more partners coming to you. But if you're on Fire TV, go to Fire TV channels, scan down, and you will find the 24/7 channel Locked On Sports today under channels, and click on it and be there watching Locked On Sports today. Right now, you're getting the most important news of the day from the local experts. I'm sure there'll be a Laker podcast there and everything else. All right. So this week, if you joined us, and if you have not heard Friday's episode, I strongly urge you to go back and listen to Friday's episode. In fact, at the end of the show, I'll link to it on YouTube. I strongly suggest. So what I did is I started in 2020 because in 2021, I wasn't really sure what pieces you could figure out, and went through all of the pieces and all the draft prospects and gave all of them a grade. Every player, and a MVP caliber player is a 10. And a top 20 player is a 7. And a top 50 player gets 5. And a starter gets 3. And a rotation player gets 2. And then a borderline player gets 1. So If you look at the 2017 draft, the 13th pick of the draft is one Donovan Mitchell. I gave him actually a 10 for a while. I kind of have wavered here a little bit on this recently, talking to some people and wonder whether or not maybe the 2017 pick that is Donovan Mitchell should be a 7. Kind of into our conversation earlier. So you can decide whether you Donovan, and there's a bunch of these that are like right on the edge. Like you kind of have to make a decision. It's not the easiest thing in the world. So let's look at some GM history. Let's start with Danny Ainge. So Danny Ainge has been drafting since 2003. And the expected value that Danny Ainge would have on all of his picks in his career up through 2020, so no Jazz picks because it's just been too recent to do it. His expected value is 27. So an example, he drafts Marcus Banks in 2023, has an expected value of 2.4. He becomes a borderline player. Kendrick Perkins gets drafted that same year. Expected value of 1.1 because of his draft position. So 1.1 would be like a borderline player. Perkins becomes a starter. He gets a 3. Al Jefferson, expected value 2.4. Debate, was Al ever top 50? I decided not. He's a 3. Tony Allen was expected value 1.1. He's a 3. Rajon Rondo was a expected value 1.1, and he's a 5. He's a top 50 player. Might have been better. But Jared Sellinger was a 0, and Fab Meller was a 0. And James Young was a 0, and RJ Hunter was a 0, and Ubalisi was a 0. And Romeo Langford, who was a 2.3, was a 0. So Danny's had some misses. So the end result, with Jason Tatum being a 10 and Jaylen Brown being a 7 on projected picks of 3.9, Danny Ainge is a 34. So Danny Ainge exceeds value by 26% of your expected pick value. So the Jazz this year, in all likelihood, are picking 9th because we'll lose one, which has an average pick of 2.6. You add Danny Ainge factor up 25%, and we get a starter. We're drafting 29th. That has an expected value of 0.9. Add the Danny Ainge bump to about a 1.2. We get a borderline player there. And we're picking 31st or 32nd. I can't recall. In the second round, that expected pick value is 1. We get a borderline player there. Hopefully we hit on one of those 2 and get a rotation player out of that for a 2, and then the other's a 0, and then it comes down to kind of being on average. That's our hope, is really, you're just wanting, you don't really want 2 borderline players, so you want one of the 2 to hit as a rotation player, and you'd like to get a starter in that 9th pick. That's what we're hoping for. Track record says that Danny Ainge should be able to do that a little bit. Now, Dennis Lindsay is much maligned around here. Dennis Lindsay started off his drafting career with an expected value of 2.3 with the 9th pick in Trey Burke and got a 1. Borderline player. But that same year, he drafted a 1.1 expected value in Rudy Gobert and got a 7. But in 2014, he had the 5th pick of the draft, which is an expected value of 3.9. Should be borderline top 50 player, and he got a borderline player in Dante Exum as a 1. The same level, he drafted a 1.1 late pick Rodney Hood and got a starter. The Trey Lyles pick is much maligned. Klay Thompson was available. Other players were available that we should have drafted instead of Trey Lyles. But the fact is that Trey Lyles is a rotation player in the NBA, and the expected value on that pick was a 2.4. We didn't pick in 2016. 2017, with a 2.4, he grabbed Donovan Mitchell, which we'll call a top 20 player. He also, with 1 Tony Bradley, got a 0. In 2018, with a 1.1 pick, a pick that has expected value of 1.1 borderline player, he drafted Grayson Allen. Turns out to be a starter. And then in 2020, expected value 1.1 with Udoka Azubuike instead of Desmond Bane and Jaden McDaniels, and the Jazz fan base will never forgive Dennis Lindsay for such a move. And doesn't want to forgive him for Trey Burke and Dante Exum, as we only focus on the few mistakes that Dennis Lindsay had. With years of drafting, Dennis Lindsay's expected value was 16.5. And his actual value that he garnered in that time period was a 24, or a 45% increase on value. Pretty good. Dennis Lindsay gets a lot of heat from Jazz fans about his performance as a general manager, but that's pretty hard to deny. A 45% overvalue of the picks that he used. Pretty good. His agent, if he's listening right now, you can send me a check, since Dennis will be one of the more highly sought after general manager replacements probably in the offseason. So when you use that data right there, feel free to send me a check. Or Dennis, when you speak of me, speak well. Is Sam Presti as good as they say? We'll touch on that next on Locked On Jazz. Today's edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you in part by our friends over at FanDuel, the official sports book of Locked On. FanDuel has got it for you. It's playoff time. NBA, NHL, baseball's in full swing. FanDuel is there for you to bet on every game, every event. A little golf, a little tennis, all sorts of it. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. No, guaranteed. Win or lose, guaranteed. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on the app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. They are also the official sportsbook of Locked On. And if you want to get involved tonight, the 76ers and the Knicks are a 4-point favorite. The Cavaliers are a 5-point favorite with an over-under at 202. And the Pacers are a 4-point favorite in Milwaukee. You can also bet one of their fun parlays in which the Knicks are one they have up there right now. Knicks are money line. So you just choose to pick the game. Tyrese Maxey to score 25 or more. Brunson to score 30 or more. Brunson to have 6 assists or more. Embiid 2 or more threes. And Jalen 3 plus threes. It's a plus 837. So if I understand that right, you bet 100, you win around $8,000. That sounds like fun. If you're going to get all those right, you probably deserve it. That's over at FanDuel, FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Is Sam Presti as good as they say? Let's look. Let's get the biases out. Let's get the cherry picking up. So first pick of Sam Presti's career is Kevin Durant. Expected value 3.9. He gets a 10. He also drafts Jeff Green that year. He actually underperforms. He's a starter. Expected value is 3.9. The next year, with an expected value of 3.9, he drafts Russell Westbrook, who's another 10. He also drafts Serge Ibaka that year with a 1.1 expected value, and he gets a 3. And then the next year, in 2019, he drafts 3.9 expected value, and he gets James Harden. Another 10! Are you kidding me? It's the greatest drafting run in the history of the NBA. The debate is whether or not he possibly ever should have traded James Harden or Russell Westbrook or who he traded. So at the end result, by the time you've taken those picks and you now run it out, going into 2020, and I have not counted Chet Holmgren or Jalen Williams, who are going to be massive hits. So let's make sure that we're clear, because I just can't I look at the 2021 draft right now. And I really have a hard time telling you where I would put any of the players. Like, I don't know what I would give Cade Cunningham. I don't know what I would give Jalen Green. I don't know what I'd give Evan Mobley. I don't know what I'd give Scotty Barnes. I don't know what I'd give Jalen Suggs. I don't know what I'd give Josh Giddey. I don't know what I'd give Jonathan Kumar. I think I would give Franz Wagner a 5, but he might be a 7. I really don't know. Other than just the guys that are busting who aren't going to make it, I think. I don't have any idea. And I don't even know on Alfred Şengün. So when I look at that, I think, like, I can't really go give that. Just so you know, Oklahoma City, that year, they actually trade Alfred Şengün in another just terrible trade. They draft Trey Mann with a 1.1 pick and got a 1. So they, like, I think that one we could probably tell. In 2022, they draft Chet Holmgren with a 3.9 expected value, and they're going to get a 5 or 7 unless he becomes an MVP. He also drafts Jalen Williams with a 12th pick, which is an expected value of about 2.4, and he's got maybe a top 15, top 20 player. So that's going to throw these numbers. He's going to get hot again. Here's what's interesting about Presti. His numbers are incredible. Up to 2020, before his latest 2 hits, he had an expected value of 29.4, and he hit for a value of 43 with those three tens. So he exceeds his expected value by 46%. Lindsay was at 45%, you remember. Just up until the Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, he was in a terrible slump. The best drafter in the NBA from 2010 to 2020, 10 years of drafting. Sam Presti in that time had 2, 4, 6, 8 picks. Expected value of 12.7, had just a 7. He was underperforming by 45% on his picks. And now just hit on Chet Holmgren. And now just hit on Jalen Williams and is going to vault his numbers back up. But pretty interesting. Give him all the flowers. Give him all the flowers. Particularly when he's picked when you got to hit, you got to get your 10s and 7s. That's the way, and that's what the league is. That's why I've built this thing the way I built it. Like, this league is about Ant, Shai, Jokic, Doncic, right? This league has been about LeBron, Durant, Steph, Kawhi. That's why it's such a big story today. That's what this league's about. So you got to go get your 10s or your 7s. Getting 3s, I can go get a 3. I can go get a 3 on the street. Really, truly, right? If I need a starter, we can just go get a starter somewhere else. We miss on our draft pick for a starter, we can go sign a starter. Rotation player, we can just go get one. Joe Ingles in Europe, Simone Fontecchio in Europe, we can go find those guys. But there's zero chance that Joe Ingles is going to be a 7. There's zero chance Simone Fontecchio is going to be a 5 or a 7. Top 20, top 50 player. You can go find them. You got to hit your 7s and 10s. So that's like, that's what Dennis Lindsay did, right? He found Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. And then he did do really well late in the draft with Rodney Hood and Grayson Allen and got the 3s. He just didn't hit on Trey Burke and Dante Exum in the front of the draft. Where Sam Presti did what he had to do. Like, what matters is Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden, but he misses on Cole Aldridge, he misses on Perry Jones, he misses on Mitch McGary, he misses on Cameron Payne, he misses on Terrence Ferguson, he misses on Pokusevski. Misses. Zeros. For the best drafter in the NBA. But he hit on Chet Holmgren. And he hit on Jalen Williams at 12 in a big way. It's pretty fascinating. So Danny, 25% above expected value over the years. And he hit on Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Lindsay's 45% over expected value, but largely because he keeps hitting a little lower, right? He hit on Rudy and Donovan and Grayson and Rodney Hood. And then there's Sam Presti, who's 46% above average in his career and going to be even higher when you add Holmgren and Jalen Williams in a few years. And that's based on the top. I have a few notes I just want to get to. I thought were interesting. I saw this was great. Speaking of drafts, 2019 draft. If this is right, it's a little, maybe it's, 2019 draft. The only player to have not played in a playoff game. Now, Cam Reddish just played in a playoff game. Cameron Johnson's played in a playoff game. Tyler Hero's played in playoff games. RJ Barrett, DeAndre Hunter, not with the greatest of impact. But the only player in the 2019 draft in the lottery to not have played in a playoff game right now is Zion Williamson. Kind of weird. Brandon Ingram, I think, is a player you can put on your available chart. 2 of 14 last night, 8 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists. They've got to do something. That roster is just not enough. So they'll start fiddling with this. Ingram's good. I think he's a top 50. He's pretty inefficient. I don't think he's a top 20. He's a talent upgrade, though. He's eligible for an extension. If they don't give it to him, I think he's going to be upset. It would give us length. It would give us another scorer. It would make us better. Like, I think there's a really interesting thing in here, and I think Trae Young, Karl Anthony Towns, we'll see if that still becomes available, Brandon Ingram are all kind of in this. And that is, they're flawed, but they're better than what we got. And I'm a believer. I don't know that you can go from like 0.2 to 0.9, or like, 2 on the chart to 9 on the chart. I think you have to go to 2 to 5 to 7 to 9. Like, I think you got to make incremental improvements in your talent to then move the next talent together. We'll see. It is Locked On Jazz. Thanks very much. I will link on YouTube to the Friday episode if you didn't catch it on NBA draft history. Otherwise, we're sending you on YouTube the first ever 24/7 national sports channel, Locked On Sports Today. If you're on audio, make the switch as well to Locked On Sports Today, available on YouTube as well as on Amazon Fire TV. Have a great one.